All right, welcome into another episode of The Lab presented by Wolverine. And why not finish the quarterback carousel? It's the conversation you guys have been dying to hear about. You've been talking about it around the clock throughout camp. So we're bringing in one of the guys in the heat of that quarterback battle, Davis Warren. And Davis, we were talking a little bit pre-show. You guys are in the thick of camp. I think camp is almost over. I just want to kind of give you the floor a little bit to update us on where you're at with things, how you're feeling, and is it Fresno State time yet, or are you
It
still competing against your defense?
yeah, well, thanks for having me. This is fun to be on, and yeah, it is now it is true Fresno State. It got done today with the last day of true kind of Michigan on Michigan, good on good type stuff, and you do that for 4 weeks. You kind of get tired of going up against the same guys and things like that. And I think we're ready more than anything to just kind of all eyes on Fresno and kind of put all of our attention to that, get a little more ahead than we normally would in a given game week, and man, just start watching film with someone else and really getting to know them and the challenges they bring, and then just be ready to go, kind of let it all fly next Saturday.
Are you ready? Like, I mean, I just the journey you've taken, and now, really just in the thick of this quarterback battle. Just tell us where you're at mentally, physically, at this point in your career, getting ready for Fresno State, really for the whole season.
Yeah, I mean, I'm as ready as I've ever been. I mean, I knew kind of coming into this camp that it was going to be a grind. Uh, just as much, honestly, just as much, even more mentally than physically. Like, just having to be on all the time, and like, like being in camp, like there's really no off time. Like, you're going pretty much 24/7. You feel like your brain's on football all the time. And I think Coach Moore's done a good job of, as we got closer, kind of physically bringing things down a little bit, kind of getting guys ready, especially those guys in the trenches, kind of freshening them up as we get closer to game time. But for us quarterbacks, it's all systems go mentally all the time, and I think that's something Coach Campbell stresses, and he probably talked about it on Big Ten. But just like whatever day it is, like this is the best day of the year. So whether it's the Monday of the first day of spring ball, or we talk about it all the time as a team, like preparing like it's the Thursday, the Friday, and then the game day of Ohio State, like it's the best that day of the year. So whether it's the Tuesday, the Wednesday, and he says that before every practice, like practice walkthrough. Hey, we're gonna make this one the best one of the year, and I think having to take that approach every single day just prepares us for when you go out there on Saturday. It makes it feel that much easier, and I think all the guys last year felt that as, hey, like what you run up in practice is harder than what you're going to face in the game, and I think the
Yeah.
same thing, especially with this defense, like the same thing applies. So, man, I'm more than ready to get out there and go get after the Fresno State.
Yeah, I do want to talk to you in a second about the defense. But before we get there, during my time at Michigan, the first 2 years that Coach Harbaugh got there, like we had quarterback battles going on between Shane Morris and Jake Rudock, and then Shane Morris, John O'Corn, and Wilton Spate. And you brought up a point of like how you feel you have to be on, like every day is your best day, and like, look, we have nothing to reveal. Like, I know you guys don't know who the starter is going to be. There's like no hidden agenda here, but it is really interesting to me, and I'd love to hear your perspective on this. Kind of the challenges of having to be on every day. And hey, if you're going to have good days and bad days regardless, because that's football. You never always win. But if
Mm-hmm.
you're the starter, there's less pressure. You just have a bad day and you say, great, I'm going to learn from it. But now you're in this battle, and it's easy to maybe overcomplicate some of that process. How are you dealing with that mental side of this camp?
Yeah, I think for me, like you said, like the QB battle, like you feel like you're getting scrutinized and looked at all the time. Like whatever it is, like it's just you feel like it's always, whether it's routes on air, whether it's 7-on-7, team reps, 2 minute, whatever. And I think something that I've stayed true to, and actually me and Alex have talked about, is like just knowing your why, and like why you do this. And for me, like my journey, what I've been through, um, and kind of how I got to Michigan. I know what my why is, and that's kids that are in children's hospitals fighting cancer like every day. And I mean that like sincerely. Like when I'm not feeling up for it, or man, I'm not feeling great today, or I'm tired, or mentally I'm fatigued, like I remind myself of where I've been and where some kids are who are still fighting their battles. And that just motivates me to
Mhm.
push through whatever it is that I'm dealing with. And I think a little bit for me, like that's my X factor. Like I have the perspective to be like, no, like screw being tired, screw whatever. Like there are people going through way worse right now than this. I've been through way worse than this.
Right.
And when I was in that moment in that hospital room dealing with it, the only thing I wanted to do was be back out, be healthy, and do the things that I love to do.
Mhm.
And so I just get reminded of that. And it's just allowed me to really just play free and just take it every day at a time of like, hey, today, this is my opportunity to be the best version of myself. And I think so far I've been doing a really good job of that.
Yeah, that perspective is huge, and I'd imagine probably a lot of Michigan fans know your story. Probably a lot of our viewers know your story, but maybe there's a chance that some don't, or maybe some don't know the full context. And man, if you could take a second and kind of lay out what you have had to overcome and what that journey's been like to get here.
Yeah. So kind of Spark Notes version of it, but yeah, grew up Southern California and played freshman, sophomore, junior year of high school. Kind of played well. Yeah, I had
You're
talent.
a
Was a
four
little.
star. Weren't you a 4-star recruit?
I don't know. Like people have this like thing like, oh, he's a super highly rated. I wouldn't say I was. I was never like a highly rated, like super highly
The
rated
Lab
guy.
podcast is brought to you by Wolverine Boots and Apparel, which represents that blue collar work ethic whenever and wherever it shows up, whether that's on a job site or on the football field. And really cool chance to say thank you to our sponsors, Wolverine. This is a limited edition. As you guys, I'm going to try to get it right here for you guys. You can see it. Limited edition work boots. It is called the 1,000-mile boot, commemorative, really chance to reflect on Team 144. Obviously, you can see the blue leather. You got the maze stitching right here, the block M right here in the middle. So there's a ton of details, of course, that represent just a really quality boot. They smell great. They feel great in your hands. And it's a chance to, reflect as we're on the precipice of a new season, reflect on the principles that represent Wolverine and that represent the Wolverine football team that allowed that team last year to go 15-0, to win the Big Ten title, to win the national title, do something that had never been done in Michigan history, which is 15 wins in a season. So want to take a chance, say thank you to our sponsor, to Wolverine, to let you guys know about this limited edition boot. Really represents perfectly the community, the brand Wolverine, and you guys as part of our fan base as well. So chance for you guys to get your hands on it. You can head over to wolverine.com/blue collar.
I mean, I knew I had a ton of talent,
Yeah.
and could play at a high level. My junior, my junior year of high school, my team, we went triple option veer style system,
Oh, seriously?
which
Okay.
kind of hampered a little bit. And then we actually, one game, it was like weren't playing very well, and the coach just said screw it, and we just ran our 2-minute offense, which was like all spread the rest of the game. We scored a couple touchdowns, and I think I had like 300, 350 passing yards. And, so we did that a little more the rest of the season, which was huge, which I needed
Yeah.
because I needed game film and stuff like that. But I was getting recruited by, kind of some FBS schools, Ivy League schools, some Power Fives, some initial interest, but nothing like major. And then in the spring of my junior year, got diagnosed with leukemia, and hard to really. I could write a book on kind of how that felt and that whole situation for me and how I had to deal with it, but pretty much, woke up one morning, went to my 6 a.m. workout, and a weight that I would normally lift in that kind of progression of the weight room, I couldn't even do the warm up rep of it. Like I
Mm.
couldn't even lift the 135-pound bar like off the ground. Like it was just like, and I had to sit down. I was dizzy, lightheaded, and I just knew that something was off. And that night, my dad took me to the urgent care, and before I knew it, I was at Children's Hospital Los Angeles and sitting in a bed at 2 a.m, and doctor comes in and tells you have leukemia, and that just puts a lot of things in perspective for you of like what's really important, and redefined a lot of things for me. And I think it didn't really sink in until like, you get diagnosed, you're in the urgent care or the emergency room kind of down below. And then they're like, all right, now we're going to take you up to like your hospital room. And they literally like forced me to get in a wheelchair. And I was like, that was when it really sunk in for me. Like, oh, like, I was no sicker the day before than the day that I got diagnosed, but you feel different, right?
Wow.
So then they pretty much by the end of the weekend found out that I had acute myeloid leukemia, which is didn't find out till later, but it's only 5 to 8 months of treatment as opposed to the other form, which is much more common, which is 3 years. But the survival rate is significantly lower. But I really just the only thing I could say like about that whole experience is just I was so blessed and so lucky that I everything that pretty much happened from when I got diagnosed to when I rang the bell in mid-August went exactly how it was supposed to. Hit every deadline, every milestone. Didn't have a ton of huge hiccups along the way. And the biggest thing that I've learned since then is just how many kids don't get that story and don't get to tell the story that I'm telling. So I just super grateful and lucky, and ended up kind of long story short, playing in a football game in mid-October at about 155, maybe 60 pounds. Still had my hair growing back, and played a couple weeks, and then my platelet count wasn't high enough, so couldn't play, and then was drinking papaya juice to try to up my platelets to play in the last game of the year, and got to play in that one.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it was a really just kind of surreal experience. I still look back on it and I'm like, wow, that really did happen. But I think the biggest thing since I've come to Michigan is just being able to get back and use my platform to inspire other kids. And it really has helped me come to peace with my journey and my story. And I've realized that how much joy and hope it can give to other kids. So it's been really special.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that, and it can be a bit like almost deceiving in a sense, how great you look and all the story, the story of the competition you're in right now, and I appreciate you kind of revisiting that and sharing
Yeah,
it
of
because
course.
it is important. And you talk about, I mean, perspective of saying, "Hey, I want to play football again," but you mentioned the survival rate, and I'd imagine you weren't even thinking about football at some points, right? Like the
The
conversations
weirdest
with
part
your
was that
family,
like
right?
I actually kind of was like one of the first questions like I've said this before, and like very naive of me to think that like at the time I didn't realize like what childhood cancer was. Like the only thing I knew about it was stuff that you see on an ESPN game day
Hmm.
piece or something like that, and you never think like, oh, that would never happen to me. And then you're sitting
Right,
in that
right.
chair and you realize that's you. But in my naive head at the time, one of the first questions I asked the doctor was like, "So how quickly can I play football again?" Because I heard 5 to 8 months. I thought at that point it was March 21st. I thought April, May, June, July, August, 5 months. Could be back on the field by October. Literally the day that I circled in my calendar of like, yeah, I'm going to play in this game. Like it ended up happening.
Wow.
And I think, and I literally, truly just super blessed because, like I said, there are so many kids who don't have that experience and don't get that opportunity. And I just I never forget that and lose track of that. And I do truly feel like it's an X factor for me. And I tell kids that all the time too that are going through it of like, these kids that are missing school or feel like they're behind in their lives or in their development because they're going through treatment. But it's like, hey, like this is going to make you 10 times stronger, 10 times tougher, 10 times more resilient, 10 times happier than
Mm,
anyone else. Like I don't feel like I wake up and have a bad day. Like it just,
yeah.
so I'm just super blessed. And now to be able to be in the position of, you know, to be the starting quarterback of Michigan, it's a really special thing.
It's like we think of like wisdom is like that the old man with like gray hair and a beard and like all that it symbolizes like a long life, so they're full of experience, and like going through that at such a young age. And you mentioned you spent a ton of time at Mott's with these kids that are maybe some of them even younger than you were going through
Yeah.
their different battles, and it's just like my goodness, that experience. So I got to ask you though, so when you get back there in October, were they still running the triple option where they're
No,
like, all right,
new
Davis is back,
school, new
let's
school.
air this
This
thing
was
out?
a new
Oh,
school.
okay,
So the other
okay.
like caveat of that is I switched schools, went somewhere else, and ended up working out way better for me. We were running all sorts of drop back and cut it loose. So
Good
uh,
deal.
didn't forget how to throw the ball. Thank God. I actually the last during like my last round of treatment, like I was doing whatever I could in the hospital. Like I was in there 5.5 months, 5 months of treatment. I was in there for probably 4.5 of the 5. Like I was pretty much
Mhm.
in the hospital the whole time, and getting on the bike or doing laps around the hospital, or and then as I got into the last round of treatment, I remember texting my quarterback coach like, so how do I like get my arm back to, and I could only do so much because of like
Man.
side blood counts, but I would play catch with my dad in the garden and stuff like that. So it was, and I think that played a big role for me. I always tell kids like, hey, whatever you can do to like make yourself like the best medicine. Obviously, the doctors have their own thing, but like a little bit of sweat, a little bit of smiles, and getting
Yeah.
that heart rate up a little bit. If you can do that safely, like man, that's priceless.
Yeah, I mean, Coach Harbaugh would always say, like, the medicine's on the field too, right? Like,
I mean,
get out
he's
there on
not
the field.
wrong. He's not
Right.
wrong at all. So
He's certainly right to an extent, and
yeah,
it's definitely beneficial to like have a reason to wake up, and then it comes full circle, like you're saying right now, and some of those tough days in camp when, and man, there's a lot of long days, days where you're tired, mentally tired. You can kind of go back to that place and say, wait a second, I there was times when I said, boy, do I just wish I had another chance, and here you
exactly.
are doing it. So.
Hit it right on the
Um,
head.
yeah, so like I guess to that point, here you are, and one of the bigger challenges is, at least watching practice the other day, is you're going against this Wink Martindale defense, and that defensive line is tough, and Will Johnson's there at corner, and the secondary's deep as well. It forces you to be at your best every single day. Uh, what is it true? It's easy to be like, yeah, of course, like that's what a great advantage. Michigan gets to play against one of the best defenses every day in practice. Like, do you feel you're growing from playing such a challenging defense, throughout camp and throughout spring ball?
I think without a doubt. I definitely think in spring, we probably, I think in fall camp we kind of turned a corner a little bit and started and kind of figuring dialing things in a little bit more and figuring things out and just being more precise and definitely gave them a run for their money. I think in the spring they probably gave us a little more of a run for our money, but it's always a back and forth. And like,
Right.
I never felt like there was a time where we were overwhelmed um, by what they were doing and what they were. But I will say this: like my freshman year was Mike McDonald, and he brought a totally different system than that was there in the past. And I think it helped our team as a whole, just being able to get used to ton of different looks and different coverages and different schemes. And then he leaves, and Jesse Minter kind of brings in us and has the exact same system pretty much, and just having to prepare for all different types of looks and coverages. And I mean, there's nothing that we see on a Saturday last year that we didn't see in the spring or fall camp.
Yeah.
Just the varied style of defenses that they want to play. And then Wink comes in and as the kind of the grandfather of that system and does sort of the same stuff. And obviously has a ton of new wrinkles and different things in there too. And so there's nothing that we haven't seen. And I think
Yeah.
that just dials us all into, hey, we're not just used to this one rule in our offense. We're used to every rule. And so then when we play or we look at Fresno or we look at Texas or we look at Ohio State or whoever, we're like, yeah, we've seen that. We know how to deal with that. And we know what works for us that's gonna beat that defense or is gonna give us the best, an advantageous look to go make a play. And I think just like you said, day to day, I mean, you really have to be on with the protections. I think that's the first thing. Like Coach Campbell talks about getting up to the line of scrimmage and just having that checklist of things you got to hit as a quarterback to make sure you're ready to even snap the football and be included into protection, be included into what the O line's doing, be included into how the routes adjust to certain coverages. Like you got to be on, and then you got to go out there and execute it. You got to go out there. You got to take the proper drop. You got to, maybe escape a rusher here or there, and you got to put the ball in a spot where only your guy can get it. And trust me, this defense, they give up no easy yards. So
Yeah.
you feel like you got to earn everything, and it just makes us better, and I think makes us all more prepared for the things that we're going to face come October, November, December.
I just think that's the part of this battle that is such an important factor that maybe isn't getting discussed enough, is like the mental side of this. And I even go back to, JJ's progression. And from everything I understand, when JJ was able to make a huge leap, it was mentally what he was able to do. And, we talked to Coach Campbell about this in the spring, just having JJ become very familiar with the protections, know it the way the O-line knows it, see it before it happens, having JJ be aware of the way coverages get rolled, know it and see it before it happens. You should be a step ahead. And now that's kind of what you're alluding to in your own process right now. And it even comes full circle when you think about the Wink Martin. That picture changes post snap. What you see pre-snap, so you really have to be dialed into these cues. Is that kind of, as you think about your own game and your own strengths, would you say the mental side is one of your strongest points, or kind of how do you view yourself as a quarterback?
I think
what you bring to the table.
Yeah, I think for me, like that's a huge part of my game, being able to process information super quickly. And I think it goes back to even like my freshman year, like me and I know Cade's gone now, but me and him, I used to sit in with him. I mean, he was the upperclassman guy at the time, and I used to sit with him every night after practice, 2-3 hours. We'd sit and watch film with the opponent, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, every week. And I wasn't even close to touching the field. I was scout team, through and through. But I knew that that was important for me to learn. And I learned so much from him then about how to watch film, how to prepare, how to be a veteran, how to see defenses. And then Coach Campbell comes in and, Cade kind of leaves the picture and Coach Campbell just adds another, Cade added 3 layers. Coach Campbell added 10 layers to that. And my understanding of defenses and how things happen. And you got to see all 11 as the quarterback. And I feel like that's something that I'm able to do well. You got to, but the reality is, like Coach Campbell says, you can only see so many guys at once, and you got to feel the rest of them. And he's done such a good job for us. And it wasn't like, it didn't just happen. Like I definitely had to work at it in terms of how Coach Campbell was trying to teach us. But then me and JJ kind of going through that together as Coach Campbell became the quarterback's coach and really put a system in place for us to understand what the defenses were doing. And kind of me and JJ going through it at the same time, and then seeing him going out and executing that last year. It was super fun to see, but at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, like I can do this. I'm seeing what JJ's seeing. I'm feeling that out. I know how this is going. And obviously me and JJ are at different points in our journey, and it wasn't my time yet, but I felt like coming into the spring, I was super excited just for the opportunity to be like, show like, hey, I can do this, and I can do this at a high level consistently over and over and over again, make the right read, make the right decision, keep our offense moving forward. Coach Campbell always talks about it. Like, not only do you have to move the chains and keep the offense moving, but you got to put the ball in the end zone. And I think the red zone is like the best example of that, because the windows get tighter, things happen even quicker. The defenses get more crazy, the field gets, shrunken down, and you got to be super precise with how you do things. And so that's definitely a part of my game that I hang my hat on. And I think the way that Coach Campbell has built it for us and the way that I see it happening, like I'm prepared for whatever a defense throws at us. And Wink has really helped me with that, because we don't know what he's going to bring today. Like we don't know the new blitz or the new thing that he's going to do for us today, but you stick to your rules and you stick to, key in, what we talk about in the quarterback room, and then it pays off. And I think that's something this fall camp that I've done a great job of. And it's fun to see it pay off, because then the guys in the receiver room, they trust you and they see it, and they know like, hey, like this, I know I'm going to get the ball in this look. Or man, maybe before I didn't know I might just be this guy, but oh man, I'm going to get the ball here. And, and everyone's just working on the same page, and you establish that camaraderie amongst the guys. And then everyone plays a little bit harder and strains that little extra half second to make things happen. It's been fun to see it pay off.
Yeah, those mental reps are key too, man. Just like, and it's a lesson to the young guys. Maybe some young viewers are watching this. Like I remember when I tore my ACL, like going into my sophomore year, and like you can't practice, but like I think I actually made some of the most progress that year by
couldn't agree more,
visualizing what I should do without having been able to actually do it. And it's amazing. When you're in it, your perspective's limited. A theme we're talking about. When you're out there, you can see the full picture, and you miss some things when you're repping it. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think last year, like being hurt and just taking that backseat look and being able to have that kind of balcony view, like we talk about of the offense and all that, like I got so much better, and it helped me so much with that mental side, and then going into spring, it kind of showing off a little bit, and then even more as we got to camp. It's been because like I mean, all you do when you're hurt is thinking about it, right? Like
Yep.
I couldn't sleep some nights because I was thinking about like, man, I can do this. Like I still
Yeah.
have this in me. Like I know I have it, right? And then you don't get to do it, and then that opportunity comes, and you're like, yeah, like, and that's the best feeling in the world when you're like you're out there and it's working and things are clicking. You're like, yeah, I can do this. Like this is I belong here, and that's something that I feel like has showed itself in the spring and here in fall camp, and I'm excited to show it in the big house.
Yeah, man, we're excited to watch you, and I know these next kind of 10 days, right? We're about under 2 weeks out are going to be really really exciting for you and for the team, and we know you got to get going here soon. But I'd love to just ask you from your perspective too. We're going to be introducing some new pass catchers as well. I mean, we know Tyler Morris took the shallow down the sideline. We know Colston Loveland. But just kind of getting to know the rest of these guys in this group, like what's that been like for you? Have you built a connection? Have you seen some guys step up? Is there anything you can, share with us
Yeah,
about the receiver group?
yeah. I think it's even started in spring, like in the same way that I had something to prove because you know in the past JJ's been was operating at a high level for us as a quarterback room. There's so many other guys on the whole offense that feel the exact same way. There's an offensive coordinator who feels the exact same way. There's a head coach who feels the exact same way. There's a head strength coach who feels the exact same way in our building right now. Like they watched it happen and now they're in this role. Um, so I think in terms of just the offense, I mean, you guys, Colston, like you said, Tyler, and Dono and Kalel, and those guys are going to make a ton of plays for us. But Marlon's had a great camp. Max, he's been kicking butt out there,
Yeah,
and you're just going to see more of him. He's a great football player and really sets the tone
yeah,
for our offense. And then guys like Fred Moore, guys like Peyton O'Leary. Peyton's had a great camp and been dialed in, and me and him are roommates, so we have a special connection where we always know where we're going to be, and I know I can look to him and trust him, and then even guys like Amarion Walker and when Kendrick Bell comes back, he's
yeah,
obviously a lot of the Michigan fans know his name, but they've all just stepped up and taken our offense to another level, and um, they have, and I think they trust what Coach Campbell's doing, and like in the same way that I'm going up against the whole defense every day, like they get Will every day.
yeah,
They get to go
yeah,
against Will Johnson every single day, and
yeah.
Colston gets to go against Makari Page every single day, and it just helps everyone. So I think I'm really excited to see what they do when they're not going up against Will Johnson,
Yeah.
and when they get to, really, we get to open things up and just cut it loose. And I think that's been my message to them is just, man, just play free. We'll keep feeding you the rock. There's only one ball, so it can only go to one man every single play, but just stay alive for me and plays will get made. And I think Michigan fans are going to be really excited when these guys come out here, like you said, 10 days and, man, just make plays and play football at a really high level.
What a beautiful thing too, because you say, hey, something to prove. What a beautiful team. What a beautiful thing for the team to be coming off a 15-0 national title season. So you know what winning looks like, but you still got a group of guys that are hungry with something to prove. Like that does feel like a recipe for success. You know what I mean?
Totally. I think, man, I think everyone has a little chip on their shoulder of like wanting to prove something, seeing it happen, and then wanting to make it happen again. And like, people say like, oh, like Natty hangover, this, that. Like, I think it's the exact opposite for us. Like, man, this is a super hungry group on offense and on defense. And like I said, like it's, and I think that's the really cool part is like it's almost universal across at least the offensive side of the ball of like guys having to step up. And so we're all kind of going through the same thing. Everyone obviously going through growing pains here and there, but like we're all in the same spot of, hey, like this is our opportunity. Like this is on each of us now individually and then as a group to make this happen. And I think like that's something Coach Campbell said like the first day of spring ball. He was like, just so you guys know, like JJ's not going to be out there today. Trevor Keegan's not going to be out there today. Blake Corum, Zach Zinner, Cornelius Johnson, Roman, and those were guys who had been there since I was a freshman. Like those 3-4 year guys who had been starters, played a big role. That doesn't happen very much in college football. So
Yeah.
there's been a lot of guys just like me, just working behind the scenes, waiting for their opportunity. And I think it's gonna be really exciting when it all starts to kind of get the snowball rolling.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch, man. And what a great opportunity, too. I mean, Fresno State is a dangerous ball club. I mean, there'll be no overlooking them. And their coach, Jeff Tedford, just retired for health reasons. Those guys are going to be playing really hard. Of course, Texas,
Oh, yeah.
the big house. So no time to wait, man. And we'll get to find out about you and the team here early in the season. So, hey, man, congrats. Another camp in the books. You know, you're on your own 2 feet. That's a blessing, as you know, in and of
Yes,
itself.
yes.
So it was great to see you here these past few days, and really looking forward to seeing you kick off the season here coming up next weekend, man. So thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Jake.
Appreciate it. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in to The Lab presented by Wolverine. We'll see you guys next episode.